When you picture the royal guards, you probably think of serious soldiers in their bright red uniforms. But even with these well-trained professionals, some tourists have learned the hard way that it can be a big mistake to mess with them. Whether it's stepping into their way or trying to get a chuckle out of them, these 20 incidents show that those who thought they could have a laugh with the royal guards ended up regretting it. Get ready to hear about some major slip-ups that left these 20 folks wishing they had played by the rules. 1. Pointing a gun at a king's guard. Now here's a question. What would happen if you pointed a gun at a king's guard? Well, you can bet it would lead to an immediate and intense reaction. The guard would quickly take action to neutralize the threat, which might mean drawing their own weapon or taking other protective measures. Security protocols would kick in right away, locking down the area to keep everyone safe. The person pointing the gun would be swiftly detained by security personnel, and law enforcement would be called in to thoroughly investigate the situation. Depending on the circumstances, the person responsible could face serious legal charges like assault or terrorism. The consequences could range from hefty fines to imprisonment, and the overall impact would be significant, affecting various levels of public safety and government operations. 2. The man who mocked the uniform. The Royal Guard's uniforms are iconic, representing tradition, discipline, and the British monarchy itself. But one tourist didn't seem to get that and decided to poke fun at these proud soldiers during his visit to Buckingham Palace. He started making jokes about the fancy uniform of a nearby guard, laughing and throwing out sarcastic comments about the tall bearskin hat and the bright red coat. He thought it was all just a bit of fun, not realizing he was crossing a serious line. Royal Guards aren't there to be the butt of jokes. The soldier's response was quick and to the point. Without even breaking his stance or turning his head, the guard barked out, "Show respect." The guard's tone was enough to bring the tourist's laughter to an abrupt halt, as he realized that his mockery was not only inappropriate, but downright disrespectful. 3. Standing in the guard's path. During a visit to the Tower of London, a young boy was mesmerized by the impressive sight of the Royal Guards marching in formation. But in his excitement, he made a big mistake. He stepped right into the path of a marching guard, completely unaware of the strict rules these soldiers follow. The Royal Guards are trained to keep their formation, no matter what gets in their way. So, when the guard saw the boy standing there, he didn't stop or change his course. Instead, he kept marching forward, just like he was trained to do. The boy got knocked down by the guard, and it all happened in a flash, making onlookers gasp as he hit the ground. Thankfully, he wasn't hurt, but was definitely shaken up. The guard just kept marching as if nothing had happened. For the boy, it was a hard lesson learned. The Royal Guards aren't just for show, they're real soldiers with important jobs to do. 4. The tourist who grabbed the reins. It was a sunny day in London, and the changing of the guard was in full swing. Tourists lined the streets, eager to snap photos of the iconic Queen's Guard on horseback. Among them was one particularly excited tourist who just couldn't resist getting up close to the action. Ignoring the clear warnings from nearby signs and guards, this tourist reached out and grabbed the reins of one of the Queen's Guard horses, probably thinking it would make for an epic photo. What happened next was definitely memorable, but not in the way the tourist had hoped. The Queen's Guards are trained to protect both the monarchy and their horses. So when the soldier saw the tourist's antics, he reacted instantly with a booming voice that cut through all the chatter. "Stand back from the horse!" he shouted. The force of his words made everyone around the jump, including the now embarrassed tourist, who quickly let go of the reins and stumbled back in shock. 5. Climbing the gates, a dangerous play. Buckingham Palace, with its regal facade and imposing gates, attracts millions of visitors every year, all eager to catch a glimpse of the grandeur associated with the British monarchy. But one tourist took his curiosity a step too far. Literally. Ignoring all signs and common sense, he decided to scale the gates of Buckingham Palace, perhaps looking for a better view or just craving a thrill. What he didn't expect was the swift and serious response that would follow his reckless decision. As he began climbing the wrought iron gates, onlookers gasped in shock. Some even whipped out their phones to capture the daring stunt. But this was no joke. The Royal Guards aren't just ceremonial figures, they're trained soldiers tasked with protecting the palace. Within moments, an armed guard appeared, rifle at the ready, and sternly commanded, "Get down immediately!" The tourist, halfway up the gate, froze in place. The guard's weapon, while not aimed directly at him, was a clear sign that he was in serious trouble. Panicking, the man scrambled back down, and as soon as he hit the ground, security swooped in to escort him away. 6. Ignoring the warning signs. The royal guards are accompanied by clear boundaries that are not meant to be crossed. Signs around their posts explicitly warn visitors to keep their distance and remind everyone that these guards are not to be approached. However, one woman, disregarding the rules, decided they didn't apply to her, and she soon learned the consequences of her actions. During a visit to London, she was captivated by the iconic image of a royal guard standing watch outside Buckingham Palace. Ignoring the numerous warning signs and the clear barriers set up to maintain a respectful distance, she inched closer and closer to the guard. It wasn't long before she realized that getting too close was a serious mistake. As she approached, the guard remained still, but his patience was wearing thin. When she finally ventured within arm's reach, he acted swiftly. In one smooth, practiced motion, he stepped forward and used his rifle to firmly push her back. The force of the push knocked the woman off balance, leaving her stunned by the suddenness of the guard's response. Returning to his post unfazed by the incident, the guard reminded her, and everyone watching, that the boundaries set by the royal guards are not to be tested. The experience served as a stark lesson on the importance of respecting the guards and their protocols. 7. The woman who crossed the line. During a visit to Buckingham Palace, one woman was eager to capture the perfect shot. She viewed the barriers set up around the royal guards as mere suggestions rather than firm rules. Despite the clear warnings to stay behind the designated lines, she decided to cross the barrier, hoping for a closer look and perhaps a memorable photo with one of the guards. As she stepped over the barrier and approached the guard, she may have thought that getting up close would enhance her photo opportunity. However, she quickly learned the consequences of her actions. "Get off the road," the royal guard commanded without hesitation. He raised his rifle and used it to firmly push the woman back to the other side of the barrier where she belonged. The force of the push left no doubt that she had crossed the line, both literally and figuratively. 8. Disrespecting the rules. The royal guard stands silently for hours while tourists and onlookers admire their iconic presence. However, their silence is not an invitation for interaction. It's a crucial part of their duty. Unfortunately, one tourist didn't quite understand this and decided to test the boundaries by attempting to engage a guard in conversation. The tourist approached the guard and began asking questions such as, "What's it like standing here all day?" When the guard remained silent, the tourist leaned in closer and repeated his questions. He even cracked a few jokes in an attempt to elicit a response. What the tourist failed to realize was that engaging in conversation is strictly against the rules of the royal guards. While on duty, their primary responsibility is to maintain security and decorum, not to chat with visitors. After several failed attempts to draw the guard into conversation, the tourist grew bolder, mistakenly believing that the guard's silence was a sign of weakness or passivity. Then, in a swift and unexpected move, the guard stepped forward and commanded in a loud voice, "Do not speak to the guard." The force of the command startled the tourist, causing him to jump back in surprise. The guard's sudden shift from silent sentry to authoritative soldier left no doubt that he was there to protect and serve, not to entertain. 9. Blocking the guard's path. The disciplined, rhythmic march of the royal guards is a sight to behold, showcasing tradition, precision, and unwavering duty. While most tourists respect the space these soldiers need to perform their roles, there's always someone who doesn't quite grasp the seriousness of the situation. During a busy afternoon at Buckingham Palace, the changing of the guard was in full swing when a tourist stepped out from the crowd, unwittingly blocking the path of the oncoming guards. The lead guard did not hesitate. Without warning or pause, he used his shoulder to shove the tourist aside, maintaining his pace and formation as if nothing had happened. Now standing safely out of the way, the tourist realized he had made a serious miscalculation. Blocking the path of a royal guard is not only disrespectful, but also invites a swift and unceremonious response. 10. Touching the weapons, a big no-no. While the guards' uniforms are undoubtedly eye-catching, it is their weapons that often draw the most curious stares. The rifles carried by these soldiers are not mere props. They are real, functional weapons that serve a critical purpose in the guards' role of protecting the monarchy. Unfortunately, one tourist did not grasp the seriousness of this fact and decided to test the limits. Perhaps emboldened by the apparent stillness of the guard, he reached out to touch the rifle slung across the soldier's shoulder. He likely thought it would make for an interesting photo or wanted to satisfy his curiosity about the weapon. However, he was unprepared for the reaction his actions would provoke. The moment the tourist's hand made contact with the rifle, the guard snapped to attention. Shifting his posture, he barked, "Do not touch the weapon!" The command was delivered with such intensity that the tourist immediately recoiled, visibly shaken by the guard's unexpected response. 11. The clueless selfie taker. In today's world of social media, capturing the perfect selfie has become a top priority for many tourists. However, one woman's quest for the ultimate photo op ended in embarrassment when she failed to respect the boundaries set by the royal guards. Upon spotting a royal guard standing at attention near the palace gates, she saw an opportunity to snap a memorable selfie. Ignoring the marked barriers, she inched closer to him, fiddling with her phone in an attempt to frame the perfect shot. The guard remained motionless, but as she lingered too close for comfort, he decided that enough was enough. In a loud, commanding voice that startled everyone nearby, he ordered, "Step back from the guard." The woman was caught completely off guard and nearly dropped her phone in shock. Flustered and red-faced, she hurriedly stepped back, muttering apologies as she retreated to a safe distance. Meanwhile, the guard resumed his duty with the same stoic expression, unfazed by the incident. 12. The girl who tried to make a guard laugh. Many people mistakenly think the royal guards are just there for decoration, and their serious expressions can be quite a challenge for anyone trying to make them crack a smile. One tourist decided to take on this challenge while visiting Buckingham Palace. With her friends cheering her on, she started dancing around one of the guards, pulling funny faces and trying her hardest to get him to laugh. At first, the guard didn't react at all, which only encouraged her to up her game. She got bolder, moving in closer and really ramping up her antics. But without breaking his stance, the guard firmly warned her, "Stand back, miss." At that moment, she froze, realizing she had definitely crossed a line. The serious tone of the guard was a clear reminder that he wasn't there to entertain. He was on duty. 13. Little girl knocked down. During ceremonial events featuring the royal guards are often the highlight of a trip to London. During one such event, a 6-year-old girl was mesmerized by the impressive display and inched closer and closer to the action. Unfortunately, her parents were too busy enjoying the spectacle to notice that she had moved dangerously close to the marching guards. As the guards approached, the little girl stood right in their path. The guards kept marching, and one guard, unable to stop or change his stride, accidentally knocked her down as he passed by. The crowd gasped as the girl hit the ground, and the guard quickly stepped to the side, but he didn't break the formation. Other members of the ceremonial staff rushed over to help the girl up. Thankfully, she wasn't hurt, but she was definitely startled by the whole experience. 14. Touching the horse, a costly mistake. The Queen's Guard horses are a sight to behold. With their shiny coats and disciplined stance, they really add to the grandeur of the ceremony. But remember, these horses aren't just there for show. They're highly trained animals with a serious job to do, and they don't appreciate unwanted attention. One tourist, however, clearly missed that memo. While visiting the Horse Guards parade, he thought it would be a brilliant idea to pet one of the Queen's Guard horses, completely ignoring the big signs that said, "Do not touch the horses." As he reached out to stroke the horse's nose, the animal reacted quickly, snapping at him. The man yelped in pain and quickly pulled his hand back. What was supposed to be a friendly interaction turned into a painful lesson about respecting boundaries. The nearby guard kept his cool and firmly warned, "Do not touch the horses." The tourist, now nursing a sore hand and a bruised ego, sheepishly retreated into the crowd, realizing a bit too late that these magnificent animals are definitely not to be messed with. 15. Fainting on duty, the hidden challenge. The Royal Guards embody the strength and tradition of the British monarchy, yet the challenges of maintaining such discipline, especially during long hours in full uniform, can take a toll on even the most well-trained soldiers. One particularly hot summer day in London, the sun blazed down on Buckingham Palace, and the Royal Guards, dressed in their heavy red tunics and bearskin hats, stood motionless as they always do. However, the relentless heat began to take its toll. One guard, despite his best efforts, started to feel the effects of the sweltering temperatures. As the minutes ticked by, his vision blurred, and a wave of dizziness washed over him. He fought to remain at his post, but the strain became too much. Without any warning, the guard suddenly collapsed. Remarkably, even as he fell, he maintained a level of discipline. His posture remained as straight as possible, and he landed in a manner that preserved his dignity and respect for his duty. Onlookers were initially shocked by the sight, but they were also struck by the fact that, even in such a vulnerable moment, the guard's dedication to his role never wavered. 16. The tourist who touched the guard. In today's social media age, snapping the perfect selfie is a top priority for many tourists, especially at iconic spots like Buckingham Palace. One eager guy spotted a royal guard standing at his post and thought a selfie with the stoic soldier would be just the thing to impress his followers. Without a second thought, he marched up to the guard, threw his arm around him, and lifted his phone for the shot. But what happened next was anything but the picture-perfect moment he had imagined. The royal guard reacted immediately to the unexpected touch, barking out in a loud voice that echoed across the courtyard, "Do not touch the guard!" The power and volume of the command startled the man so much that he jumped back in shock, nearly dropping his phone. The guard remained completely stone-faced, making it clear that he wasn't there to be a prop for anyone's selfies. 17. The fool who taunted the guard. For some tourists, the sight of a royal guard standing completely still at his post is like a challenge to test how patient they can be. One guy was clearly up for it, eager to get a reaction. Outside Buckingham Palace, he started taunting a guard, pulling faces, waving his hands in front of the guard's face, and even shouting insults, all while his friends recorded the whole thing. After enduring several minutes of this nonsense, the guard finally had enough. He took a step forward and loudly commanded, "Back away!" The sudden movement and the guard's commanding voice startled the man, causing him to stumble back in shock. The laughter from his friends quickly faded as they realized how serious the situation had become. The guard's message was crystal clear. He was not there to be mocked or teased, and any more attempts to do so would definitely not be tolerated. 18. Disrespecting the ceremonies. Royal ceremonies in London are steeped in tradition and marked by strict protocols and carefully orchestrated movements. Any disruption is taken very seriously. However, one tourist seemed either oblivious or indifferent to the decorum required at such events. He decided to get a closer look by crossing the marked barriers meant to keep the crowd at a respectful distance. As the ceremony unfolded, the guards, clad in their immaculate uniforms, performed their duties with flawless precision. Undeterred, the tourist ducked under the barrier and walked straight toward the center of the action. Perhaps he thought it would make for a better photo, or maybe he simply wanted to feel more connected to the ceremony. Whatever his reasoning, it was a serious misjudgment. The royal guard closest to the intruder wasted no time. With a swift and decisive move, he stepped forward and pushed the tourist back. Suddenly, the man found himself the center of unwanted attention, surrounded by a mix of shocked spectators. Meanwhile, the guard returned to his position, maintaining the stoic composure that is the hallmark of the royal guards, reminding everyone present that respect for the ceremony is paramount. 19. Testing the guard's patience. During a visit to Buckingham Palace, one man decided to push the boundaries and test the patience of one of the guards. He started by standing close to the guard, making faces and waving his hands in front of the soldier's face, all in an attempt to elicit a reaction. When the guard remained still and impassive, the tourist took things a step further, leaning in even closer and invading the guard's personal space while continuing his antics. The guard had tolerated the man's behavior for as long as protocol allowed. Finally, raising his rifle, he delivered a firm shove, pushing the tourist back with enough force to convey a clear message: enough is enough. The man, clearly unprepared for such a strong response, watched as his smirk vanished, realizing he had crossed a line. Without uttering a word, the guard resumed his post, upholding the dignity and decorum expected of his role. 20. Taunting the Guardsman. The changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace is one of London's most famous ceremonies. For most visitors, it's a chance to marvel at the discipline and coordination of the royal guards. However, for one group of tourists, it became an opportunity to have a bit of fun at the soldiers' expense, a decision they would soon regret. As the guardsmen marched in perfect formation, this group of tourists began shouting taunts, making exaggerated faces, and even mimicking the guards' movements. True to their training, The Guardsmen maintained their focus and discipline, ignoring the antics of the rowdy tourists. The group escalated their efforts, convinced they could provoke a reaction from the stoic soldiers. However, the more they tried, the more foolish they appeared. The guards continued their duties without so much as a glance in their direction, leaving the tourists to realize that their attempts to disrupt the ceremony were not only failing, but also making them look ridiculous. Eventually, the group's antics petered out as they recognized that their taunts had no effect on the disciplined soldiers, who remained unwavering in their composure. The Royal Guards may be iconic symbols of British tradition, but they are much more than just ceremonial figures. These highly trained professionals have a critical job, protecting the monarchy and maintaining order at some of the nation's most important sites. The incidents shared here serve as a reminder that disrespecting the guards or testing their patience is a surefire way to end up embarrassed, or worse. So, the next time you find yourself in the presence of these disciplined soldiers, remember to show respect. They're not just for show, they're there to protect, and they take that duty very seriously.